from Zoom City and Internet Land. The Jack Benny Convention, featuring Buck Benny, Kathy Fuller-Seeley, and John Henderson performing a recreation of a lost Jack Benny script with a very special guest.
Well, hello again. This is Buck Benny speaking. Welcome to another recreation of a Jack Benny script, a long lost one. This one introduces the whole concept of Jack's song, When I Beg Your Pardon, and it's delightful. We have a very special guest today doing the show. We have Eddie Anderson's son, Eddie Rochester Anderson Jr., and he's here doing Rochester's part, and he did a wonderful job. We're recording this intro after we've done the show, so we can talk about how the show went. Eddie, we'll go over to you first. Have you done recreations before doing Rochester, or is this your first one? I don't know.
If you remember the old answering services for the phone, there would be a kind of announcement, like, hello, thank you for calling. And you would have that device at your house before technology went to where it's at now, right? Remember the old-fashioned analog sort of device? Well, my mother thought I'd do something for her. My father had passed a few years, and I thought I'd take advantage and thought it would be cute to put my father's voice on her answering service. So ring her and it would pick up if she's not there. Or even if she's there, you can hear it. You can hear the announcement. And I would say, hello, you've just reached the Anderson residence. At the tone, please leave your name, your number, and whatever brief message. So I did that whole thing. And my mother made me take it off. She said, I can't take it. It's the hell out. She said, he wakes me up in the middle of the night on my call, and your voice is too close. She said, no, that's spooky. Erase it now. So that was some of where I first started using my father's voice and stuff like that. Yeah. And my father's voice, I know there's a story out there that said his voice was strained by selling newspapers as a kid in San Francisco. And it was the story was the loudest kid sold the most papers, like, read all about it, read all about it. And they said, because he was selling newspapers, I think early as the age of 6 or 7, something incredibly young. But that's not true. His voice actually was much like what you hear me speaking. Our vocal cords are very much the same. And then he, of course, exaggerated the voice to get that engineered Rochester voice. It was incredible. I mean, he was smart enough to do that. He ran with it, and that was it. But at home, it was really toned down. Like, it went from, hey, Edmund, because that's our real name. Our real name is Edmund. And his name is Edmund Lincoln Anderson III. And I'm Edmund Lincoln Anderson IV.
Okay.
So it became Eddie Rochester Anderson. So, of course, I had to tag on to that, especially during things of this sort of entertainment and stuff, so it would be not too confusing. But he would say things like, if he were to call me, it would be, hey, Edmund, I'm looking for you. Where are you? So it's close, but it's not, hey, Edmund. It's that extra emphasis on his vocal cords. And that's where he got the voice.
Really? Wow. I totally bought into that myth, that legend. I thought that was his natural voice. And when you came on to help us and do it, I wasn't sure whether you would use your natural voice or like put on the voice, but now it makes total sense.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, showbiz, man, you got to do what you got to do to get, and I watched the very first episode of him being the porter when he first came on the Jack Benny show on the radio. And I noticed, if you listen to it, he changed his voice, even from doing the porter thing. And he spun it a little harder, a little more profound, a little more emphasis on certain things. And, you find yourself. And I understand that about acting and stuff like that. You have because I've done the whole acting school training and all that, and they teach you how to find yourself and be comfortable with that thing. It's acting. You don't want to be normal. Why would you look at TV to see somebody normal?
Yeah.
You get it?
Right.
So you got to put that little bit of accent on whatever. Just like The Rock when he does his eye, that eyebrow thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Everybody got that little thing.
Well, and when you say it's so interesting, listen to that first year of Rochester. I mean, Eddie Anderson, because he's not Rochester at the beginning, he's a train porter and he's various things for a few episodes. And then all of a sudden, they write him in as the Rochester character, Jack's valet, like he's always been there. Right. It's not like, oh, I'm hiring a new valet or anything. It's right. Just there. Right. And they nail it from the first show, the very first. If you listen to it, you'll think, you could say, oh, this is from 1948 or 19. You have no idea that it's the first time he's appeared, and he nails it with Jack. And they get that whole bit of the fact that he's his servant or butler or whatever you want to call it, his valet, but he gets the best of Jack even in that first interaction with them, and from there on he gets the best of Jack like every time. It's one of the things I love about this script and why it was so neat having you do this one, because it puts Rochester in that interesting place of this being his day off and Jack wanting him to do work for him, wanting him to make breakfast for him. He's hinting at it, and whether Rochester is truly clueless about it or just acting like he's clueless about it to see how far his boss will go with trying to get him to make the breakfast. I think that's a great little bit. I love it.
And it's interesting, even to keep him company, he says, I don't like eating breakfast alone. Hey, Rochester is like, no, I'm doing my own thing.
Right. Give me a break, boss.
Me time is what they call it. Me time.
Yeah, that's right. It's me time. Well, and Jack respects that. And Jack doesn't just say, get in here, you got to do this. You work for me all the time. Anything that someone else might do with somebody that's their employee, he doesn't do that. He lets it go. And I think it's great. What like for doing this bit, I mean, you and Todd were so great going back and forth as Jack and Rochester. Were you surprised at how easily that you and Todd could pull that off? And
I knew I was going to feed off of Todd, because remember you sent me that link.
Yeah. And
so I looked at it and I was like, and me and you even had a quick discussion about that. We kind of played on it. I was like, I'm going to try to blow Todd away. Because it was spooky. I was like, I need that guy's number after that for other projects. You nailed it, man. Nailed it.
I got to tell you what an honor it was for me to be able to do that with you. And it just, I was getting chills as we were dialoguing. It was just so cool.
Hey, Todd, you're still Jack. It's scaring me. You're cheating. You were Jack all the time. Were you Jack at 3?
Todd puts on glasses and goes, so you found
out.
You
nailed it though, man. You nailed it. So it was really easy for me because I was feeding off of you. But man, could you imagine if we really rehearsed this?
We'll take it on the road.
It'd be insane. I think people would get spooked and probably would ban us.
Yeah, and we found we just kind of run these. They're kind of like an old-fashioned table read where the actors would just read. It's not a finished product or anything, because to do that it just takes so much more than we have. But to do it as a nice, fun table read between everybody, it works out pretty slick and it's fun and we
I think it's a very smart idea.
Yeah. And the thing is, we have some of their original table reads have been recorded, or the original rehearsals that they had, and they would be somewhat similar to this. You'd have that. They don't have a lot of them. There's probably like 10 of them that are floating around out there, but it's interesting to see the kind of joking back and forth, and a lot of what we do is very similar. I guess it's just what happens when you get people together and somebody blows a line or whatever, and you just kind of make fun of that, or they read the wrong part or whatever, and it's all
if there's a way to get Eddie some of those table reads, we should, so that we can.
Yes, I would love to see that. They even have audio and visual or video stuff, or no?
No, just audio. They're just
Okay.
audio like
That
rehearsals.
would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'll throw them. It's fun because every once in a while you'll get Eddie and Jack coming out of character and just kind of talking to each other for a second, and then they go back into it, and that's always a fun little piece when that happens. So yeah.
Mhm.
So I've got a whole folder that's just those, and so I'll just link you to the folder, and you can listen to as many as you want.
Yeah, they had insane chemistry.
They did, yeah. It
was really insane. You just don't see much of it anymore.
No, and a lot of it is in the writing. So I mean, because you could hear you guys' chemistry click so well too,
Right.
And so you could see how easy that would be with their chemistry. They already had this affinity for each other, and then on top of that, to have the writing feed into that so well. Yeah, it's great. So yeah, Zach, you were making some points before we were recording the intro, but why don't you throw out some of the stuff you were sharing about the importance of this episode? Or
Oh yeah, well, I was relaying the fact that one of the first television episodes I ever saw was the visual version of that opening routine with Rochester on his day off. So to be able to witness it with Eddie Jr. here playing the role of Rochester was like, it was quite a mind-blowing like thing to experience at 10 o'clock in the morning. It certainly wasn't on my list of things that I was going to experience this week ahead of time. But also to witness the difference in the script as it's written, from the way that the routine was adapted for radio and filling in the gaps on how that routine would have been adapted for television. I've done screenwriting before, and to try to put the pieces together in my mind as to how would this function, and what would be the camera direction, what would be the actor blocking, like how would they label that out in television form. But also this script is a very key source of for Benny fandom, because it's the origin of When You Say I Beg Your Pardon, Then I'll Come Back to You, which, since it doesn't exist, I never knew for years what was the instigator of this. It always just seemed like Jack just decided one day to write a song. So to have the gap filled was very, very nice, thanks to this lovely recreation.
Well, we're so glad you could be here, Zach. Yeah, and Zach, why don't you really quickly, just because this is your first time here and everything, why don't you tell our listeners, like, you have a podcast that you run. What is that you?
Yeah, I run a podcast called Yesteryear Ballyhoo Review, spelled REVUE, because I think I'm being clever.
You just make it hard to find your podcast. That's all.
I don't want anybody to listen. We go through Golden Age Hollywood films and early cinema titles, basically anything pre-1968 before the new wave kicked in. And we go through the titles but through a deep dive breakdown, and we discuss some of the funnier aspects of them, but we also talk about the historical context behind them. I've done many episodes on Jack's film career. The Buck Benny Rides Again episode was a very big-hearted tribute to Eddie Rochester Anderson. And we have an episode with Laura Leibowitz from the Jack Benny fan club talking about Man About Town. And Hope Sears from all of the classics just did George Washington Slept Here with me back in December. We've gone through some interesting titles. The next one that's coming out is Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. So we're talking about the Betty Davis and Joan Crawford feud. And there will be one on the Lost Weekend that I'm recording the day before the convention. So we're the parody that Jack did of Lost Weekend will be brought up in that episode, because I will not miss a chance to talk about that lovely episode. Okay. And that actually has a really good Rochester moment, because he's trying to get a job with Ray Milland and leave Jack. Absolutely delightful. So yeah, it's on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, most of the platforms, and I'll send Daryl all the information if he wants to link it. But yeah, it's a fun thing. And I also do weekly film reviews on the Real Nerds podcast, where we take the new movie of the week and review it. I haven't been on the last 4 weeks because I've been prepping the Benny convention, but right. I'm sure I will return to talk about the upcoming titles, including Jackass Forever, which will be an interesting time. But yeah, I'm anywhere you guys want to find me. Just shoot a message and say hello.
and like he says, he's really a key component in the Jack Benny convention that's coming up here next weekend. And as I say, next weekend, I who knows when you're hearing this, but we were going to present a different recreation to the Jack Benny convention, but I have a feeling that Zach and I would like to get this one put together and put in place of that one. I think would be a better.
I was going to say, Daryl, if this wasn't the one you were planning on, I have no problem being seen in my PJs right now. So.
Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and go with this one since we got Eddie here. That is so great, and it could be seen by a number more people than if we just put it out there for my audience. So I think that'd be fantastic.
And it gives people a chance to get to know Eddie Jr., who, Eddie, you've posted a lot over the years on the page about your father, and I do want to take a moment to thank you for that, because it's very lovely to get to know your father through you.
Thank you.
Like it really is like, as I said before, the amount of barriers your father broke just continues to inspire me. And, my dad, on a personal note, my dad, he doesn't listen to Jack with me that often, even though he introduced me to him accidentally. But, whenever your father comes on, my dad's eyes light up, and his you can hear his laughter. So that's still a gift that your dad keeps giving.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that is so sweet. And also, I mean, I'll just point this out about Eddie too, because I love the fact that Eddie's doing so much to honor his dad, but he's also lately been sharing pictures of his mother, and she's 88. And still with us, right? 89, and still with us, and that's wonderful. So, I hope she's doing all right and everything. And
it's a battle. It's a battle. She's suffering from dementia and Alzheimer. So we have, good nights, bad nights, but it had gotten a lot worse maybe 6-7 months ago, but now she looks a lot better. She's talking. I mean, how Alzheimer's does. So So we're fighting that, but she's still alive and she's healthy, and it's all good.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that she's still with us and everything. And just enjoy her, and everything. My mom's same age. I mean, my mom's 88, but she's almost 89, and then and my dad's 90. His 95th birthday's coming up this summer. And they're both hanging in there and everything, and all that, and so we're just enjoying them as much as we can.
That part, I get that.
But thanks everybody for this. Did John, do you have any questions for Eddie, or anything you want to point out about your podcast or anything? Or
well, I always have a chance to promote my podcast. It's This Day in Jack Benny, and basically whenever there's a reference in the episode, I'll look up like a clip for that reference for people who, you hear a joke and you don't get it. It's usually because it's a 1940s joke. But I think it has really been a thrill to have Eddie Rochester Anderson Jr. here today, and to be able to ask him questions and interact with him, and especially to do the part. It's just so much fun. So I just want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you, man. I enjoyed it, man. It really did. It made my Saturday.
Daryl, you indicated there was going to be surprise. I never in my wildest imagination thought it was going to be this. This is exceeded what I thought it would be by far.
Yeah, because my trick was, so I'm having everybody do an episode we've already done. And everybody's like, why are we redoing an episode we've already done? And yet, because I knew it had such a big Rochester part, that's why I wanted to do it. And And so I had to talk everybody into coming. So I had to make, it's going to be something big is going to happen, but I didn't want to tell them. I wanted to be a surprise. But the last thing I wanted was anybody to go, well, you know what? I think I'll just skip this week and join you guys next week, and then be kicking themselves because they weren't here when you were here, Eddie.
Yeah.
Right.
So everybody that was able to come came. I mean, even, and just so you know, Vincent, who does Dawn, he hasn't come and been part of us for over a month because he's busy with doing a lot of other stuff. Yeah.
He's been so busy. Yeah.
But I just thought I'd mention it to him. I did let him on the secret ahead of time just because I didn't want him. So he knew that you were going to be here. And so he said, oh, I'm coming in and I'll be Dawn. And I'm like, fantastic. So he did. And he did a great job being Dawn. So, but John is my man of 1,000 voices here. And John just does such a great job with Paulie and with Dennis for sure. So often he does Frank Nelson. He does a beautiful Frank Nelson, the best Frank Nelson I've ever heard next to Frank. So
wow, thank you. No, it's so much fun to
That's good. That's
hear it
good.
over and
Isn't that
over
great?
again, and then you get a chance to like do
that.
voices like Dennis. It's so much fun.
Yeah. So John, can you do Frank Nelson?
Well, I'll have to show you sometime.
No, you gotta give me
to decide.
Ooh, can I? So John, can you do Frank Nelson?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll think about that.
Would you stop? Give me a ooh, can I?
No, you have to say, oh, Mister.
Oh, Mister.
Yes.
Can you do Frank Nelson's voice?
Yes. I'm always worried because on Zoom, if you go too loud, it'll cut you off. So I got to hold back just a little bit.
Get in that sweet spot. That's right. Yeah. But yeah, thanks everybody. I think we'll end there unless anybody else have any questions for Eddie or anything you want to ask or talk about or anything.
I want to thank him for coming. Thank you, Eddie.
Oh yeah, thank you, Eddie. Yeah.
Hey, I enjoyed it. We'll do something again, I'm sure.
Oh, we will. And Eddie's
I'll be reaching out, and I'll be sharing you guys. I've got some things going on.
Yeah.
We got some. I got some challenges.
Yeah. Oh, tell just really quickly.
Well,
as far as I know, it's new news.
Yeah.
What happened with Rochester's house recently?
Yeah, I've been struggling to try to keep the house for probably over 12 years because of one was I'm a real estate developer, right? So you know about 2008 crash. So they caught me with all this inventory when the crash happened. I was able to survive it somewhat, but lost a lot of stuff. And so, of course, with any loss, there's some struggles involved. Now, but I turned the estate, my father's mansion, restored it. It's beautiful, doing it. Now it was a bed and breakfast. It paid for itself and stuff like that. And I have other properties that are linked up to it to keep things going. Now I'm taking care of my mother solely. I have siblings, but I'm the one, right? I'm the main caretaker. So with that being said, now we've got the pandemic. Now you don't have your tourists. That's what tourism. The money came from tourism because most of the Airbnb and stuff that I was doing was overseas, and so that's over. So all these things combined, I have to be able to finesse, and I'm not one. I'm like my father. He was very proud, and so I got some of that DNA, and I struggle with having to ask for anything because I'm a doer. I do things myself. But I'm going to have to let go of that and start trying to understand how the nonprofit game, the trying to raise monies for, this is what I envision. And this may be unrealistic to most humans, but I've seen it done. I really believe my father's powerful enough to rally up enough support to really put some of these things in a free and clear position. So none of these will be caught in a position to be able to lose this legacy, this house, all the things that are attached, because there's so many things attached to my father's legacy. Not only just showbiz, but like the human services. He was, we got Elon Musk, right? But people don't know my father created an incredible car in what? In the 30s. It's called the Rochester Roadster. He was like an Elon Musk. It's crazy. And matter of fact, I found the car. I found the guy who got the car.
Wow.
Yeah, that you posted that video last year, I think.
Yeah, I found it. And I talked to the guy. I said, hey, man, heard you have my father's car. He said, yeah. I said, excellent. You think I can come by and see it? He said, yeah. He's a, collector, enthusiast. And I said, you know what? I've always wanted to do my father's movie. You think I can use the car for the movie? He said, well, I could tell I was getting too aggressive again. Remember I told you guys.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm moving a little strong. And he kind of saw me coming. He said, well, yeah, maybe. That's insurance kind of issue. And if we can do something with that and I feel comfortable. And I said, yeah, last but not least, how much would it cost for me to get my father's car back? And he told me with a little chuckle, he said, man, look, if you had $3 million, I wouldn't sell you this car.
Oh.
That's what he told me. Real talk. So I need to raise $4 million. and really, money is no object. If you really,
Yeah.
I've made a lot of money. I've lost a lot of money, especially in real estate. And it's never really about money. It's about like what we're doing now. It's having the opportunity to be able to enjoy yourself with meaningful things like we're doing now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
that's it.
Well, and then wasn't the house made into a national or a state?
Oh, absolutely. I flew to Sacramento. I had the package done.
Yeah.
And Sacramento made it a national monument or the National Registry of Historical Sites.
Yeah.
That was 2 years ago.
Nice.
Now on the 1st of this month, it was perfect because it's Black History Month.
Yeah.
They actually declared it a local monument, historical monument. So that was done just a few days ago. So that was huge.
That's wonderful.
And a couple of days before that, it's weird. All this is happening. That's why probably I'm on the show, because it was that thing happening, that weird supernatural.
That synergy thing.
happening,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
So I woke up. My neighbor sent me a picture. We live in a cul-de-sac called Rochester Circle. He sent me a picture of the light pole, and there's a big plaque on the light pole that says, I was pursuing this for a couple of years. They never even called me to tell me that they were actually going to attach it to the light pole as you enter the cul-de-sac. There's a big old plaque that says, the Eddie Anderson, here go the Rochester thing again, but they didn't have enough room. So they put Eddie Anderson, Rochester, right up underneath, and it says Rochester Square on Rochester Circle. So I didn't get that. So I'm calling them and asking them, can we at least change the square to circle? Just doesn't make sense. So those were the big, huge accomplishments. Matter of fact, just this week, the plaque, the declaration, and now we're doing the Zoom, the podcast. So it's all good.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like it's so easy for people to forget and to just let the things in the past go. But I think it's so great that you are pursuing the legacy of your father and Jack Benny and everything. I think that's awesome.
I think as a child, I'm not going to say my parents embedded this in me, but to my understanding as a child, as an offspring, I think the natural process is for when you have a child really is supposed to take care of your parents.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the natural order. That's the way it feels for me.
Yeah.
So I made a lot of sacrifices because of that thing inside of me. I just knew that I was supposed to do what I'm doing now. And even if you make it your whole life sort of commitment, you just have to do it. What better way to live your life of doing something like this. I couldn't, you know, I was an athlete. I could play ball. I do all those different things. Act, but this here, right here, there's no feeling like it in the world.
Yeah.
To be a part of something like this. It just so it's lineage. You know, you got to keep going. And I have kids, and they're chasing Hollywood, but they don't even know how big their grandfather was. They know it, but they don't really get it. They really don't. So it's interesting.
If I could say something on behalf of the group, Eddie, I'll start by saying I'm 30 years old now. I would like to let you know that there are people around my age and younger who are aware of your father and what he accomplished. And in regards to everything that you've been saying, you know, the Benny family, and by that I mean the fans of Jack and the community around it, we take care of each other. They've taken care of me since I was 10. And I would certainly say that you fall in line with that, if not sooner than any of us. And we will be there to support you in your endeavors, no matter what the circumstance, because that heritage does need to be kept alive. And I'm so very, very proud to see that you are taking that at the forefront. It is absolutely admirable, sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I second.
The Lucky Strike program starring Jack Benny with Mary Livingston, Phil Harris, Rochester, Dennis Day, and yours truly, Don Wilson. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's go out to Jack Benny's house in Beverly Hills. It's morning, and at the moment, our little star is shaving.
Be happy, go lucky, be happy, go lucky, strike, be happy. Well, that was a good, clean shave. Nice and smooth. I wonder how I'd look with a mustache. If I grew one, maybe somebody would give me $10,000 to shave it off. I don't want anything to detract from my eyes. Well, now I'll go down to the kitchen and get something to eat. I hate when it's Rochester's day off. I always have to make my own breakfast. If there's anything I dread to do, it's fix my own meals. But it's either that or Rochester.
Huh? Oh, good morning, boss.
Rochester, what are you doing here on your day off?
Oh, I didn't have any place special to go today, so I thought I'd just stick around the house.
Well, you know, I was just going in the kitchen to make my own breakfast.
Good. Go right ahead. You know, boss, I really enjoy spending my day off at home. Yes, sir. Nothing like sitting in this rocking chair reading a good book.
Yes. Well, I guess I'll go out in the kitchen and make my breakfast.
Oh, boss.
Yes.
When you get through, you'll find the dish rack under the sink.
Oh, well, I wish he'd oil that rocking chair. Let's see now. Where's the frying pan? Oh, there it is. I wonder if there are any eggs in the Frigidaire. Here's one egg, and there's another one behind it. Oh, I always mistake that light bulb for an egg. Last week, I boiled it and screwed it into the egg cup. Oh, here's a whole bowl of eggs. I think I'll make them sunny side up. Gee, I hate to eat alone. I just want someone to talk to. Oh, Rochester.
Yes, boss?
Would you like something to eat?
Oh, I don't know.
The eggs look awfully good.
Well,
They're fried, sunny side up. Makes a nice breakfast.
well.
Oh, I'm sure you'll like it.
Okay, bring it in.
I'm not going to bring it in. And take off my bathrobe.
But boss, you gave me this bathrobe for Christmas.
Well, I want it back.
Okay, 3 more months and I'll get it back again.
Never mind. Oh, for goodness sakes. While I was talking to him, my eggs burned, but I guess it's my fault. After all, it is his day off. And he wants to spend it just sitting in a rocking chair. Why?
Oh, boss, there's someone at the door.
I hear it.
He's coming.
Yeah, can you wait a minute?
Oh, hello, Jack.
Hello, Don. Come on in. Come in the kitchen, Don. Sit down. What's on your mind?
Well, Jack, the reason I dropped over here was to tell you that I thought of a wonderful idea for the program. So I took the liberty of asking the girl who made that wonderful record, Come On to My House, to be a guest on the show.
Oh, Rosemary Clooney. Oh, sure. That'll be great.
I'm going to bring her over a little later so you can talk to her.
Excuse me, Don. Hello? Yes, he's still here. Just a minute. Rochester. Whistler's mother.
Yes, boss.
There's a call for you. Take it in the den.
Yes, sir.
Now, where were we, Don?
We were talking about Rosemary Clooney. I figured she'd be a great guest star for your program because of her popularity. You know, Come On to My House sold nearly 3 million records.
Gee, that's a lot, isn't it? 3 million records.
And that's a novelty song. Sometimes torch songs or ballads sell even more.
Really?
Certainly. Take a song like Stardust. Hoagie Carmichael wrote that one and made over $200,000 on it.
$200,000 for writing one song?
That's right. Now, Jack, my thought is using... Sorry. That's right. Now, Jack, my thought in using Rosemary Clooney on our program was to have a specially arranged number and incorporate it in the show. And that way we could also use her with dialogue. See what I mean, Jack?
$200,000 for writing one song. Gee.
Jack, you weren't listening.
What? Huh? What did you say, Hoagie? I mean, Don?
Never mind. I've got to pick up Miss Clooney. I'll be back later.
I can't get over it. $200,000 for writing one song. Imagine. Now, what's that? Rochester, how come you're cleaning the house?
That phone call I got was from Susie. She wanted me to go out with her later in the week. So I thought I'd work today and take off Friday off.
Oh, good, Rochester. Did you know that Hoagie Carmichael got $200,000 for writing one song?
Yeah, he made all that money when he wrote Stardust.
How do you like that? 200,000.
Say, boss, would you like me to fix you a nice breakfast?
No, not now. Rochester, if anybody calls, I'll be in the den.
Okay. Well, the house was pretty dirty, but I got it all cleaned up. I wonder what the boss is doing in the den. He's been in there a long time.
So my darling, though we've parted. So my darling, though we... No, it's better the first way. So my darling, though we've parted.
What are you doing, Mr. Benny?
Rochester, why do you interrupt me? I'm writing a song.
You're writing a song?
Certainly.
You're kidding.
What do you mean, kidding? Songwriting is a very dignified profession. And if it wasn't, would they pay me $200,000 for one song?
Who's giving you $200,000?
Well, that's what they paid Hoagie Carmichael.
But Hoagie Carmichael wrote Stardust. That's a classic.
Da 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 da. $200,000 for that. Now Rochester's. A quiet, Polly. Now, Rochester, my song is all about a fellow who broke up with his sweetheart, and I've got the most wonderful title.
What is it?
When you say I beg your pardon, then I'll come back to you. Isn't that beautiful?
Oh, it'll ruin White Christmas.
No. They're different types. Rochester, I'll show you how it goes. Quiet, Polly. Listen, I want you to hear this. You got to hear this. When I say I beg your pardon, then I'll come back to you. When you ask me to forgive me, then I'll blah, blah, blah. I'll go back. When you
Wait a minute, Mr. Benny. What are the swallows doing in Serrano?
wait, I go back and cut this piece again, Rochester. I messed up. There we go. When you say I beg your pardon, then I'll come back to you. When you ask me to forgive you, I'll return. Now, Rochester, get this next line. This is wonderful. Like the swallows at Serrano.
Wait a minute.
Serrano.
Wait a minute, boss. What are the swallows doing in Serrano?
I had to have a rhyme for Capistrano. See, Serrano is a little town in Italy.
Well, how can the swallows come all the way from Italy back to Capistrano?
I don't know. I can't have them come from Stockton or Pismo Beach. I've got to make it rhyme.
Well, why don't you have the swallows come from Hollywood?
Why Hollywood?
Then they can use the new freeway.
Oh, quiet, Rochester. Look, you haven't heard the best part yet. Now listen to this. If you say that you are sorry, then I will understand. 'Neath the harvest moon, we'll pledge our love anew. Now, Rochester, here's where I'm stuck, but I'll get it. So, my darling, though we've parted, come back to. Here's where I need a beautiful phrase. Come back to.
Whence?
So, my darling, though we've parted, come back to whence we started.
Whence?
Yes, whence.
It's a little town in Italy.
It is not. It's a poetic form of where. Now here's the finish. Rochester, get this. So, my darling, though we've parted, come back to whence we started. And sweetheart, then I'll come back to you. Well, Rochester, what do you think of my song?
I have the same opinion that Polly has.
Polly didn't say anything.
But she just laid an egg.
What?
I think that Wentz did the trick.
Listen, Rochester, when this song is on the hit parade.
Hello, everybody. Anybody up?
Up? We're in here, Dennis. Come on in.
Oh, hello, everybody.
Oh, hello, Dennis.
What are you all doing up so early?
Early?
Yeah, it's 6 o'clock in the morning.
6 o'clock in the morning, Dennis, it's 11 o'clock. How do you happen to be 5 hours behind?
Last night, everyone I ran into said, don't forget to turn your clock back. So I did.
Dennis, it isn't 6 o'clock. You're supposed to turn your watch back 1 hour.
Oh, gee, now it's 5 o'clock.
It's not bad enough. This kid drives me nuts, but he's got an extra hour to do it.
Why don't you sing him your song and you can get even with him?
Oh, yeah. Well, let me tell you something. Rochester, you could have your fun now, but just wait until the... Excuse me. When you say, I beg your pardon, then I'll come back to you. When you... Don!
Here I am, Jack, back again.
Don, I thought you were going to bring Rosemary Clooney.
I'm right behind him, Jack.
Well, Rosemary, come in. Gee, it was nice of you to come over. Come into the den. I want you to meet Dennis. Oh, and Rosemary, if he acts silly, don't pay any attention to him. It's because he's kind of young, you know.
He won't bother me, Jack. After all, I'm only 23 myself.
23. Gosh, I'm almost old enough to be your father.
Well, you'd certainly be a young father. After all, you're only 39.
That's right. How did you remember?
I've been hearing it all my life.
Yeah, follow me, Rosemary. Well, here we are. Rosemary, I'd like you to meet Dennis Day.
Hello, Dennis.
Sure, Magora. It's like a bit of old Blarney sing a Colleen like yourself, Miss Clooney.
Dennis, I never knew you spoke with such an Irish brogue.
Ah, 'tis a brogue which drips with shamrocks, and you'll not find a better one this side of the County Cork.
Say, you speak like a native. Do you come from Ireland?
No, I listened to Morton Downey.
You see, Rosemary, I told you.
Say, Rosemary, I heard you do a song on Guy Lombardi's Lucky Strike program this summer that I thought was wonderful. I can't think of the name of it right now, but
Was it from this moment on?
that's it. I wish you'd do it this afternoon.
Oh, but Dennis, I had another wonderful idea for Rosemary. That's why I brought her over to see Jack.
Yes, Dennis, I want to hear what Don's idea is.
Well, Jack, hear this number first. Maybe you'll like it.
All right, go ahead, Rosemary, sing it.
Okay.
From this moment on.
I don't know that one.
It's all good. It's a good song. We'll put it in there from the real Rosemary.
Maybe George can sing it at some point. Who knows?
All right. That was wonderful, Rosemary. Simply wonderful. Hasn't she got a beautiful voice, Dennis?
Yeah, for a girl.
Well, of course, for a girl. What man would sing like that?
Morton Downey.
Now cut that out.
Frankly, I don't see any comparison here. If Rosemary sang like Morton Downey, she'd have to be a soprano.
A soprano?
Quick, write it down. It rhymes with Capistrano.
Rochester, you can stop being funny. Miss Clooney's voice happens to be more of a contralto.
That's even better. You can have the swallows come from Palo Alto.
What?
They'll never make it from Serrano.
All right. Now look it. Let's forget my song.
Good.
Now, Rosemary, what's this great idea Don has for you?
Well, Jack, Dawn wants me to do Come On to My House with a special arrangement from the Sportsman Quartet.
The Sportsmen, where are they?
Behind Dawn.
Oh, move over, Don, and let me see.
Okay.
Oh, yes. And gee, there's an orchestra back there, too. Go ahead, Rosemary. Let's hear it.
Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you candy. Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you apple and a plum and apricot too. Oh, come on to my house, come on. Come on to my house, come on.
Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you Lucky Strike. Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you Ella and a S and an M and a T. Hey, come on to my house, come on.
Come on to your house, come on.
Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you a mild mellow cigarette. Hey, come on to my house, come on.
Come on to your house, come on.
Be happy, go lucky, strike. Be happy, go lucky, strike today.
Rosemary, that was wonderful. And Don, your idea of using Rosemary with the quartet was good too, but on what program do you think we should do it?
Naturally.
Dennis, what does that mean?
I don't know. You got a laugh last week.
Well, this is this week.
Well, how about having Rosemary do it this afternoon?
No, Don, I'd rather have Rosemary do my song. After all, it's brand new and Rochester, will you answer the door, please?
I can't.
Why not? You're not taking the day off. You decided to work today, didn't you?
Uh-huh.
Then why won't you answer the door?
Lunch hour.
Oh, excuse me.
He's coming.
Oh, Phil, I wasn't expecting you.
Well, I didn't intend to come, but I thought at a time like this, Man could use friends around him.
Me?
I thought you'd need all the cheering up you could get.
Phil, why should I need cheering up?
Oh, well, I hate to be the one to break the news to you.
Phil, what happened?
The newspapers are raising their prices to a dime.
But to a dime?
Yeah, it was all in the papers.
I know, but who read it to you?
I read it myself. It was print. I can handle that.
Oh.
Well, I'll run along now.
No, Phil, don't go. I'm glad you came. You might be able to help me a little.
Sure, Dad. What's the problem?
Well, I wrote a song, and I'd like you to look at the music.
The what?
Music. For goodness sakes, what's on your piano?
Remley, we had a party last night.
Remley's on your piano?
He's in pretty bad shape. We might just have to put down the lid and bury him.
Look, Phil, why can't you just once come here and Rochester?
Still on dessert.
Well, answer it anyway. Come on, Phil. The gang's in the den.
Hiya, kids.
Oh, Phil.
Hello, Phil.
Phil, this is Rosemary Clooney.
Hello, Phil.
Well, if you come up to my house, baby, I'll give you ham hocks and turnip greens and black-eyed peas from New Orleans.
Phil!
When you say I beg your pardon, then I'll come back to you.
What's the matter with the kid? Is he sick or something?
Dennis, put down my song.
Your song?
Yes, I wrote that song.
Let me take a look at them lyrics. When you say I beg your pardon, then I'll come back to you. When you ask me to forgive you, I'll return. Oh, no, Jackson, no. Forget about that song, Dad. Them lyrics don't mean nothing.
Oh, them don't mean nothing, don't them?
No.
Well, Phil, let me ask you something. You're the sole author and composer of a little gem called That's What I Like About the South, aren't you?
Yeah, I wrote that.
How many copies did that song sell?
About 5 million.
That's all the encouragement I need. And let me tell you something, Phil. I'm going to have this song of mine introduced by a great singer, somebody like Mario Lanza.
Mario Lanza?
Yes, he's the greatest tenor in America.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I'll take that insult from whence it came.
Whence?
You see, Rochester, my lyrics are catching on already.
Well, Jack, good luck on your song. I've got to run along now. Hey, Phil, will you give me a lift home?
Sure, Donzie, hop in.
I gotta go too. It's 5:15. I want to see the sunrise.
What? Forget about it. I'm off. Hey, Rosemary, can I drop you off someplace?
Yes, thanks, Phil. I'm living at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Goodbye, Jack.
Goodbye, Rosemary, and thanks so much for coming over.
Bye.
Goodbye. That Rosemary Clooney makes a fortune singing Come On to My House and Lynn lives at a hotel. Well, everybody's gone. When you say I beg your pardon, then I'll come back to you. Gee, I like that better than Stardust. Let's see, how does Stardust go? Sometimes I wonder why I spend. At least my song makes sense. When you say I beg your pardon, then I'll come back to you.
The Jack Benny program is heard by our armed forces overseas through the facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Stay tuned for Amos and Andy's show, which follows immediately. This is CBS, the Columbia Radio Network.
I thought, let's let you guys, if anybody has any questions for Eddie before we get started, let's do that. So, John, you got anything for Eddie? I would assume you have some questions.
I'm curious because I was talking to Elva Green, who is the daughter of also an old time radio star. And she said that she met your father once and everybody called him Rochester. So I'm curious whether people in real life called him Rochester or Eddie or both or what?
Actually both. Like, for instance, if my mother or my mother, of course, it would be Eddie, wouldn't be the show stuff. You know, now that's a hard question. Let's say he would answer to both.
Yeah.
It was either or, and he wouldn't correct you. He wouldn't say, like, if you
Right.
called him Rochester, he wouldn't say, no, just call me Eddie. It's either, I think he took it either or. I think it would have been too hard, you know, because Rochester was the big one. You know, that's the show kind of thing.
Yeah.
And but still, even around the house, the neighborhood and stuff like that, who knew my father on a personal basis, it was still, hey, Rochester, hey, Rochester. It was still that, not Eddie. No.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. So maybe, you know, that was a good question. Maybe, I think for the most part, me hearing my mother say Eddie.
Right.
That was it.
Wow.
Yeah. So more Rochester than Eddie.
Errol, I have a question and a comment.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Eddie, first of all, my comment is your dad was such an awesome performer. I mean, he stole the show a lot of times, and I just loved watching him and listening to him. So awesome guy. And my question is, what did he like to do in his free time? What was life like with your dad?
He was a man who would like to go fishing. Spent a lot of time in front of the fireplace, actually.
Really?
Just sitting in front of the fireplace, and that's where we would have our moments together. He would tell me things that I still don't understand to this day, because you know what I'm saying? He was dropping some wisdom really over my head. So I'd be like, oh yeah, okay. You guys, and as I got older, of course, I understood what he was saying, but those were the more powerful moments that I would have with my father. You know, he had two lives, especially when I would look up some of the history of my father, especially when he was married to his first wife. And by the time I came on the scene, it was like sort of night and day. It really was, because he was more into, I guess, the glitter of Hollywood. He was not so much just wanting to be there, but just very, very busy. So by the time I came, he was on his way to retirement. So I got a chance to spend that kind of quality time with him.
That's great.
So that's how that worked. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And Zach, I just sent you the script again, so hopefully that gets through to you. Well,
Eddie, I've got one quick question.
sure.
Did
No
you
problem.
ever get to go on the set with your father when he was doing like the Love American style
Yes.
episode or other
Yeah.
things?
He
I'm
would
curious.
take me and had me believing that I was going to try out for a part.
Oh.
That's how you got me. And I'm sitting there in the corner rehearsing while they're actually filming, actually shooting. It's like, go over there. You got your part? You ready? You ready?
Oh,
Never got the part.
Now, he passed when you were 19 years old, you said?
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Okay.
just turned 19 January 21st, and he passed February 28th. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so sad, but I'm glad you got to experience him for 19 years.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
you know,
I am too. You know,
yeah.
could have been a whole lot sooner. Really.
Yeah,
could.
right.
I
Right.
wouldn't have had the opportunity.
How,
So, yeah,
how old was he when he passed? I can't remember.
He was 72.
72. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and Eddie's doing a lot of things to try and keep his dad's memory going. And one of the things that he's doing is on Rochester currently has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame or whatever, and the star is just says Eddie Anderson, and he wants to get it changed so it says Eddie Rochester Anderson. And then why don't you tell us a little more about the star thing? Because you also won a couple more stars. So go ahead.
Sure. Actually, I was very young, right after my father's death. I was actually just walking down Hollywood and I happened to look down at the stars like most people do. And I came across a star that only had read Rochester. It was only Rochester before Eddie Anderson. And I was like, yeah, but no, but yeah. Just Rochester wasn't enough for me to really, even as his son, identify that that's my father's, right? So I started on this campaign, got in touch with the Chamber of Commerce and stuff like that. And I think it was Johnny Grant was the president of Hollywood. I think that was him or something. Yeah. So I started going back and forth with the Chamber of Commerce, trying to get the star change, and it wasn't easy. It was a difficult run. So me and him were going back and forth about the Rochester, and I kind of laid back off of it for a while because it was kind of intense. And unbeknown to me, my one sister, the middle sister, she took up the project without me knowing. And they actually blindfolded me and took me to Hollywood. I didn't know where I was going. They took the blindfold off and they showed me the star. It had been changed to Eddie Anderson. Kind of bittersweet though. You get it? I get the Rochester off. I get the Eddie Anderson what I want, but then the Rochester's gone. I'm like, why'd you guys, you know what they told me? Because I'm a little hothead at times, I'm the bull, right? And they said, well, you know what? Just calm down. Just take it like this and let some time pass and go after it again. So 30 years later, here I am. I'm trying to do it again. I'm trying to get the Rochester in. Yeah, trying to get it in.
And what's the star for? Is it for radio?
Radio. Only radio. And Jack Benny, which I really didn't know until recent, because I'm still going after to put the Rochester in the middle of that. And I just started doing my little research and I'm finding out Jack Benny has 3 stars. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Radio, television, film, yeah.
Yeah, so instead of just me going for the Rochester, let me go for the home run. You get it? And that's what I'm going.
I actually have a question regarding that because it's strange to me that your father doesn't have a star for film, because as Kathy has been researching and has enlightened me on with my own research, your father did a lot to break a lot of barriers on film. The work he and Jack did, especially with the 3 Sandwich films, Man About Town, Buck Benny Rides Again, and Love Thy Neighbor, are films that were so counteractive to norms back then that they were able to supersede Southern censors because of having a black man and a white man on screen together in a role that didn't necessarily indicate servitude. And I'm actually curious, Eddie, when you watch your father's work on film, like, what is the thing that impresses you the most about it? Because he was not just a comedian, he was also a consummate dancer and, to my mind, a wonderful singer.
Yeah, he was, I guess you call it a true entertainer. And to go back to what that really means, that means you have to be the prodigal child. He had to sing, even to get a chance. I think back in the day of getting maybe even elected or chosen to cast or whatever, you had to really show some talent. You back in those days, you had to be able to write music, sing it, play it. You get what I'm saying? As an instrument, he did all those things. He actually could sing. He would intentionally use flat notes for the comedic side of things, but he was not tone deaf. It was amazing. He could sing with that raspy voice in a way nobody else could. It was just strange. So in watching my father, I just want to rewind a little bit, because I thought my father would enjoy watching himself too one day. I was a kid in the room, and all of a sudden your father pops up on this box. You get it, this boob tube or whatever, right? And I'm excited. I mean, that's my father. So I'm like, wait, that's Daddy. And I'm looking, and I run around the house, and I find him in the kitchen, and I say, Daddy, 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 you're on TV. I don't really understand how this thing works. I know he's on TV. And I said, come on, come on. I run back into, it's called the rumpus room, like a family room. And I'm watching, and I just know he's somewhere in the vicinity. And I look back because I'm laughing. I don't know what I'm laughing at, but I'm laughing. He's not there. So I run back in the kitchen. I said, Dad, what are you doing? You're on TV. He said, well, son, I have something to tell you. I said, what? Come on. He said, I never watch myself on TV.
Oh.
True that. So that kind of tells you, I mean, that gives you some imagination. I mean, you could take that in a whole lot of different places, but he was a different kind of man. You know what I mean? Based on all of my experience in my 64 years, he was dialed different. He really was. So back to when I would see, and that showed a sense of being very, very noble, and he was true to his art. This is the way I took it. And I think when you look at your work too much, you question whether or not you did a good job. I've heard that before. You question yourself. And so sometimes you do it and you leave it, or you'll find yourself repeating, and you may not have, you may be less dimensional, so to speak.
Oh, and there's lots of artists that cannot watch themselves. I mean, one of the most famous is probably William Shatner. Cannot watch himself at all. He says as soon as he starts watching himself, he starts picking his performance apart.
That's what I kind of took.
With William Shatner, we all kind of do that with his performance.
Out on the Great Space Show.
But what I did like about, and when Zach asked me, what really impressed me was the bond that Jack Benny, my father, had. And the show, even though Black people were sometimes in protest, but I don't think they really watched the Jack Benny show, because if you really watched it, Pops was playing a valet or a manservant or whatever you call it, but the roles were switched, where Rochester was really calling some serious shots, and Jack Benny that was his advisor. And you get it, and it almost, Jack Benny was smart enough to even know he needed an advisor, but he needed to spin it a different way. I mean, if it were in real life, so to speak. It's like, I'm going to keep this smart man next to me, whatever it takes to do so.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, I thought that way. It's crazy. So I just like the fact that the role, man, they had so much love for each other. And if you look at that New Year's show, that I think the same script. He sat next to Jack Benny, and he put his shoes on the table, his feet, and Jack Benny looked at the feet, and he was okay with it. So that showed you a sense of equality. Now, when they went out, of course, in public, and I'm talking about as far as the show wise, they played it perfectly. But he still didn't play the certain role. He still dressed like Jack Benny. He stole Jack Benny's clothes every once in a while. His car, didn't get fired. I mean, come on, man. You know, I tell people, they were the first dynamic duo. Not Batman and Robin.
Back in that
dynamic duo.
Well, so we were talking last week, Eddie, about we were doing a show on Buck Benny Rides Again. And in Buck Benny Rides Again, one of the early scenes, Jack's car is having issues and whatever. So which is the Maxwell, which is his old ancient car, of course. So they abandon that car and go to Eddie's car, which is this beautiful car that's new and shiny and everything. And so Eddie's got the good car and Jack has the bad car. So
that's what I mean.
was just a cool thing.
That they don't have a show like that anymore. And you remember Vincent, the movie Vincent, where the same thing. So I actually ran into him. And I said, "Hey, man." He said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm Rochester Jr." He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "But that's not what this is about." I said, "You know what? I've watched you, man, and it's kind of uncanny the way you spin your role. It really looks like my father, man." And he did like this. "Who do you think I studied?"
Oh,
That's what he told me. I had to moonwalk back on that. I was like, okay.
Hey, Eddie, tell him about the Denzel Washington thing you were telling me about.
Oh, Denzel Washington?
Yeah.
The one where he said, and I'm gonna put that on the international Jack Benny group too, where he actually commented, he said, somebody in the interview of Fences, and the cast was there. And the interviewer had said, well, who do you owe your success to? Like people like Spike and what's the other one? But he named a couple of people that were young directors. And Denzel corrected them and said, no. You know, he does that. No. He said, you gotta go a whole lot further. You gotta go way back. He said, I owe my success to people like Eddie Rochester, Anderson, and Stephen Fetchit. You gotta go back. That's what he's saying. Hattie McDaniels. He went back. Yeah, he said no.
That's just awesome.
And I love that he mentioned that too in that interview, because one of the most groundbreaking scenes in Buck Benny Rides Again is actually the dance that your father does with Teresa Harris, which is, I did a breakdown, a 3-hour breakdown of Buck Benny on my show, and the guests that I had on, we were marveling at the fact that here is this wonderful rom-com subplot stuck in the middle of this Jack Benny movie. And we were like, a part of us were clamoring for that full movie, or at least a better even balance. But that dance scene does so much to break barriers beyond the standard things that we consider. It's remarkable. And he does several different dances over the course of one number.
Yeah. You remember the one where he's doing that little Indian thing with the feather?
Yeah,
that was classic. I actually paired my father up with Michael Jackson and found out Michael Jackson, and rest in peace, but he stole some dance moves. I actually put them next to each other, man, and put Michael Jackson's music with it, and it was identical.
Wow.
Even all the way down to a glove. I saw one of the movies, I don't know which one it was, Pops had one glove, and doing the whole thing. And the kick, and the moonwalk. I mean, come on, really?
Oh.
That's great.
So, yeah.
Well, anybody else have any questions for him before we get started? Go ahead, Todd.
Eddie, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
As far as showbiz, and a lot of people, even Denzel, I actually ran into Denzel at a restaurant. I think I was a little too aggressive. He's not gonna call me back. He was like, man, you don't know I'm Denzel? You know? But so I tried, I'm not gonna say I tried showbiz. I've always been in showbiz. I put myself in entertainment. So I did the Comedy Store for a few years. Was doing that. Did the whole cattle call auditions and stuff like that. Almost got a really huge part. I think the name of the movie was Fetch with Lawrence Fishburne and another guy. They had a jailbreak or they escaped prison, I believe, and they were handcuffed together. Whole movie, but I mean, I kept getting the callbacks, and I think I was too aggressive again. You know what I'm saying? Because the last guy I was reading for, he was like, "Why are you staring at me like that?" I was like, "I think the script saying I'm supposed to be mad." You know, he said, "You're intimidating me." I was like, I just literally laid the script down and did like this. I'm out. You know, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. So as a young man, 23, 24, 25, I still have the showbiz DNA. So what I ended up doing, I became into promotions, doing nightclubs, but with a different spin on it. I did something called disco aerobics. I would take a nightclub. I was always into physical fitness, and I turned it into like a gym, a disco and gym. You wouldn't wear regular clothes. You would come to a disco with your workout gear. I'm talking about with mats on the floor and the whole bit, and it blew up. It was huge. So I was doing that, promotions. Then I went into human services. So I'm probably responsible for housing over 10,000 homeless people and incarcerated over a period of 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so I have some huge testimonials coming from people that have actually broken the bondage of being trapped with drugs, alcohol, everything that comes with that.
So I guess we'll switch over and get into doing the script, and then we can talk at the end of it again some more. So we're just so glad to have you here, Eddie.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having. Hey, and did you try to contact me before a while ago?
No.
Somebody went after me. No, that wasn't you.
No.
Somebody,
all I did, I saw your posts on Facebook about the houses and stuff, and the little video you did. Like on my end, it showed up this last week. I don't know how long you've had that stuff out there. And then I just thought I'd reach out to you, and then you were really receptive, and so I'm like, let's do this.
Caught me at a good time.
Yeah, I did. It was awesome. It was awesome.
That was perfect time.
Yeah, well, and then with the convention coming up. Oh, and that's Zach. For those of you who don't know, Zach's like with the whole convention thing. He's probably, I guess, I would think if Laura Leibowitz is like the heart of the convention, then maybe Josh is kind of the brains behind it, or certainly on the tech side and everything.
Yeah,
Zach, what would you say you? Well, give us a little background on you, Zach, because we haven't had you here before. So
this has all been kind of last minute.
Last night, like midnight.
Yeah. You caught me at the right time. I was just like, oh sure, yeah, shoot, I better get to sleep now. No, I've been a member of the Jack Benny fan club since I was 10 years old. I joined up through the online one, and Laura and I always stayed in touch, even when I lost track of the forum. And Jack was actually instrumental for me with a lot of things in my life. And I'll keep this brief because I know we want to get to that script. But
yes.
When I was growing up, Jack and the gang were friends of mine that I discovered because my dad wanted to listen to an episode of the show featuring Groucho Marx. So that was my first Benny listen. And slowly I became a fan of Benny. And Benny superseded Charlie McCarthy at a certain point for me, because that was my favorite up until then. Because it's a ventriloquist on the radio. Everybody gets fascinated by that, as they should. And then as I got older, I kept bringing Benny into my life. And in fact, a lot of the stories about Jack and Rochester and their relationship were very instrumental in me understanding equality and civil rights and respect, and the humanity and the bond that humanity can bring to us, no matter our differences. And so as I got older and I fell into my own alcoholic abyss, Jack and the gang were there for me again. In the time that I spent in a lot of rehab facilities, I was finding a way to listen to Jack, whether through my phone or by other means. And as I got out of my stuff, I kept in touch with Laura the whole time. And last year, 2 years ago, I started my own podcast on Golden Age Hollywood. And I asked Laura to be on to talk about a Benny movie, and she picked Man About Town. And it ended up being a 4-hour journey through Jack's film career that then led to me doing a panel at last year's convention on Jack in film. And that has now led to me working on a book about Benny's film career and why it failed, because his film career has not had the same historic legacy as other comedians in film. And as I found out through Kathy, and as I'm finding out more, the history of Benny in film is far more complicated than we were led to believe. And a lot of allusions to what's going on to this very minute, especially with the horn blows at midnight. But so, yeah, that's kind of me. I've just kind of always been around the Benny fandom. And this year at the convention, I'm doing a lot of different panels, one with Brad Zinn, one on Jack in animation, which your episode on Jack in animation recently with Malibu Beach Party and Mouse to Jack built was a great Kickstarter for my deep dive into that, because it gave an insight into how these cartoons are viewed that I wasn't looking beyond my own purview. And there is another panel that's now definitely happening on Sunday that needs to get rearranged in the schedule. But Kathy and I are involved in it. And Eddie, actually, your sister, Evangela, and I have been talking recently. She was there last year, and she's agreed to come back for a look at your father's career. And I didn't expect to meet you today, so I want to extend you the same invitation as well. But yeah, no, the Rochester panel I'm looking forward to the most, because Eddie's story is so unknown to most of us that it's frankly incredible that his story isn't told in a world where we are learning more about African-American performers of that era who overcame a lot of barriers. And I feel like Eddie's story, beyond others, is one where I don't know why we don't look at it more often. I don't know exactly if it's because of the Benny relationship, but the more I look into it and the more I look into those notes, the more I realize, like, this is the story that needs to be told. So that's why, Daryl, I agree that you and Kathy should definitely convince Eddie to get a biography written with Kathy's help, because that's the story I want to read.
Same with me. I can tell you.